All right, how you all doing today? This week we're going to do a two-part lecture about the COVID-19 and the state government's decisions to begin reopening the economy, and all of the ways that this is going to be felt politically. So, some of our last lectures, we talked a lot about the sort of like liberal governors' stands they made in mandating government ordered shutdowns of businesses and all the controversy that came with that, and support. Right, you can look at both sides. And today we're going to kind of look at the other side, what other governors have been doing. So, so South Dakota's governor, Kristi Noem, right? She's been leading a charge to essentially um, make sure that that her state stays open. And in fact, South Dakota was the only state I'm aware of. Nebraska was one of them too. That really didn't respond at all to COVID-19. Very, very, very few shutdowns. Um, they more or less kept their economy open through this entire crisis, right? So she's been kind of leading the charge, and she's been very outspoken in saying all along she's been saying, I'm not going to shut my economy down. I think that's a threat to individual rights and liberties. And of course, more libertarian minded folk have supported her. More liberal minded support have been very critical of her to say that she doesn't seem to be really caring about the public health crisis. Well, kind of like, so think of it, Kristi Noem would be like the equivalent on the other side that Newsom, governor of California, and Andrew Cuomo, governor of New York, have been for their push to support the shutdowns, right? She's been against it. So, following in the wake of the South Dakota governor's decisions to keep the economy open in South Dakota all along, and her more outspoken support to get the economies moving, Georgia, right? Governor Kemp, right? He's he's leading the charge down south to get the entire Georgia economy back up and running. Um, Within the next couple days, movie theaters will be fully opened in Georgia. Restaurants will be fully allowed to open. Um, all retail stores will now be allowed to open. Um, and bars are going to remain closed, but he said he's going to reevaluate that in the next couple of weeks. So it looks like Georgia's going full steam into reopening the economy. And following suit behind Georgia's governor is South Carolina and Tennessee, have both indicated that they're going to begin rapidly, well, the next week gradually, but within 2 to 3 weeks, they want to rapidly open their economies. And North Carolina has also voiced support for opening up their economy. Texas, of course, is leading the charge to open up their economies very swiftly. So, really, what we're seeing is sort of like the Midwest and the upper Midwest. Think like South Dakota, think North Dakota, Nebraska, and then Tennessee, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, of course, just reopened almost all of their beaches. Um, in short, the more conservative states are opting now to reopen the economy rather swiftly, right? And of course, this is there's a couple ways to look at this. One is that all of the protests, two ways to look at this really. One way is the governors may be moving swiftly Number one, because of all these protests that have been popping up, the Operation Gridlock, as they call themselves, the people who are um, been protesting to reopen the economy. It seems like state governors now are being forced to at least, um, listen to that. Even in Colorado, Colorado's Governor Polis, of course, has um, indicated that he's going to begin gradually lifting the restrictions. And even in California, the mayors are taking it into their hands to reopen the beaches. So I just read a clip in San Diego, where my sister lives. Um, they reopened many of the beaches in San Diego County, and there are reports of 50 to 60,000 people rushing to the beaches. So it remains to be seen how this all kind of plays out. Um, but the protests are one reason, probably why we're starting to see a lot of movement among governors, particularly the conservative governors, um, uh, to restrict the shutdowns, rescind the shutdowns. Sorry. Um, Second reason has to do with massive unemployment rates, right? So many states are now extremely concerned uh, that their unemployment systems are about to be completely overwhelmed. I think the latest filings, right, is 26 million people have lost their jobs in the past 5 weeks. I mean, that's just like stop and think about that. That rate wasn't even happening during the Great Depression. So we're at like I think we're already at 17% real unemployment. So we're rapidly moving towards Great Depression level unemployment. Um, so that is becoming a major concern for governors, right? Now, of course, one has to beg the question, if we open the economies too soon, will that just cause a second wave of the entire COVID-19 virus? And God help us if the entire virus um, mutates and is even stronger than it is now, which some scientists have been suggesting that is a possibility. Like my sister works in the ER, and she's been reporting some really ghastly accounts to me, what she's personally seen of people in their 30s and 40s just dropping dead from strokes because of and they had mild symptoms. So who knows how bad this thing really is? It could be worse than we even think, right? And now, of course, the conservatives would argue it's overblown. The liberal, in terms of the media's become given it too much hype, and that it's not as bad as people say. It's more like the flu. And more liberal-minded folks would say that this is much worse than the flu, and that if anything, the media is underreporting how bad this is. So we don't even know what is true, what is fact, what is fiction. Who knows? Um, but I'm curious what you guys think about the movement by conservative governors to now be asserting their power. Before it was liberal governors who kind of had the spotlight. Now it's kind of more conservative governors who have the spotlight. And other thing I want to ask is this dangerous, do you think, for state governments to be playing politics with a public health crisis? Many conservatives have argued that liberal governors are playing politics with it by um, creating an environment of fear and maybe overblowing how bad this virus is. Maybe it's not as bad as they say it is. And then conservative governors may be, doing the same thing, politicizing this, downplaying the virus when it's worse than they're saying it. I mean, it's worse than they're saying it is in order to win support from more conservative voters. So just kind of curious where you guys kind of stand in all this. This is like a constantly evolving issue. Um, I'm sure you guys will be happy when it all ends. as will I. And hope you guys are well.